Okay, and we're off and rolling. Happy Friday, and welcome to our leadership call. It's good to have everybody here. Thanks for joining us. If you can, please make sure your cameras are up, unless there's an emergency, but we want to see your faces. Thank you. And let me see. I'm going to pick on who this week. John, will you read the thing for us?
The thing that hasn't, are you going to share it?
I am going to share it.
All right. So it's, we are curious. We don't accept the status quo. We look to understand the reason why we do things and if we can do them better. We seek to understand our employees, our clients, and each other.
Perfect. Thank you. We are curious. Oh boy, we are. And this is part of our discussion today, all about curiosity and that sort of thing. So I'm excited to get into that part of it. We do have to finish off the last couple of our 9 ways that we're becoming lifelong learners, 9 steps. So we'll do that, and then we'll move into the other one. But before that, Ted had sent out a list of information from a great book, Creativity Inc., if you haven't read it. So Ted, I'm going to turn that over to you to kind of lead that book deal.
Okay. Anybody have any, I just covered your faces with my document. Hang on. All right. Anybody have anyone you're willing to share that stood out to you on that list? We're only going to spend a couple minutes on this, but I just thought it was worth reading the
I can. I had one that I really liked.
Okay, Mariah, thank you.
Yeah, I liked number 7. It was failure isn't a necessary evil. In fact, it isn't even evil at all. It is a necessary consequence of doing something new. I thought that one really resonated with me. It was like a new take on an idea that I kind of already knew, but just hadn't really thought about that way. So that was kind of like a paradigm shift for me. That was like a super impactful, like, wow kind of moment for me when I read that one. I like that.
Awesome, thank you. I see some hands up. I just want to make one other comment. I don't think it was in here. I could have missed it when I read it. These were my notes from doing it before, but they say in the book, it starts out, and he has a YouTube talk, and I actually saw him on a podcast with a guy named Tim Ferriss. And actually, I read in a book I'm reading with Carrie called Tools of the Titans, and he interviews Ed Catmull in the book. And both in the book Creativity Inc., in the TED talk he gives, and in the other one, he's talking about Pixar movies, and he's like, all our movies suck. Every Pixar movie sucks. And his point is that when you start into a creative process, the end result is not what the beginning is. So as soon as you start judging, you're going to shut down creativity. And so you shouldn't be judging. You should just go for it. And it's an iterative process. And Toy Story, what resulted, which was amazing and changed a whole industry, and all the other Pixar movies, they are not what started out. And they all started out terrible. It's terrible movies, but they kept at it and they evolved. And I think that was a good creativity point that I didn't see that I put in my notes here, but I may have missed that. All right, Joe, and then we'll go to Techie. Looks like Shane took his down.
So 37, John and I were talking just yesterday, and number 37 reads, don't wait for things to be perfect before you share them with others. Show early and show often. It'll be pretty when we get there, but it won't be pretty along the way. And that's as it should be. One of the best advice I ever got in my career was a very demanding boss. And he said, Joe, I don't need the cake baked. I just need it 51% done. It's like the other 49% is going to come when we put it into play. And it was just this great moment that, stop worrying about it being perfect or trying to get it, finished or trying to get it across the finish line before you even get out the gate, because no plan survives contact with the enemy. And so it comes down to is just get it off the ground, get it 51% and go get it into play. And this was before Agile as a IT principle came out, and I just really I love that mindset. Let's not worry about perfection. Let's make sure that we're sharing it along the way, get it going, and that's where it'll be perfected along the way.
Awesome, thank you. Techie, did you withdraw your hand?
Oh yeah, I was gonna go after Joe. Still.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, related to that, those half-baked plans or not being perfect. I like number 12 a lot. Our job as managers in creative environment is to protect new ideas from those who don't understand that in order for greatness to emerge, there must be phases of not so greatness. Protect the future, not the past. There's plenty of examples in my own life in history where there's a lot of new ideas. I think about Columbus and this idea of the world being round versus flat. But he pursued it and found the new world and brought this brand new future here. And I think it's an interesting idea. It's the first time I really came across something like this, protecting the future, not the past. And it's just, in order for greatness to emerge, there'll be some periods of not so greatness. And we'll just have to traverse that as we find and innovate new things. So
that's a great line. Protect the future, not the past.
It is a good line.
Profound. All right, Maria Amador.
Mine is number 8. It says the desire for everything to run smoothly is a false goal. It leads to measuring people by the mistakes they make rather than their ability to solve problems. That one stood out to me because I'm a perfectionist. I like everything I do to be perfect. This week, Shane sent out an email and I was like, okay, I need to know the reason for this email. Let me ask him if it's because I messed something up and how I can learn from it. Sometimes I take that mistake and I see it more as a failure than as an opportunity to solve the issue and fix it and become better.
Great point. Thank you. All right, Ivan.
For me, it was 27. Many managers feel that if they are not notified about problems before others are, or if they are surprised in a meeting, then that is a sign of disrespect. Get over it. I think us or some of us as humans just put too much thought into something that has nothing to do with it, and we start worrying about things. So that one stood out to me. I like that one a lot.
That's a good one. I think that's something I need to work on. I think I don't like to be surprised. I'm less accepting of being surprised than I am of general failure. It's like the mistakes and stuff aren't the end of the world, but I don't like to have them come up. Yeah, without one. So that's a good one for me to work on. Love it. Shane?
There we are. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm freaking excited to be here. As every meeting we do, these are awesome. I really do love these. I actually agree with Mariah and exactly what her option was. I tell my team all the time, I want you to screw up. Screw up. Make mistakes. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. But you need to learn from those mistakes, right? It's one of our goals to disrupt the industry. How else do we disrupt the industry than doing something different? There's you all know I put job fairs on. I've done it for 10 years. When I first started doing it, I started doing it the way that I wanted to do it, not the way that everyone else was doing their events. And everyone told me, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. Those hours aren't going to work. The way your marketing isn't going to work. And now, 10 years later, I have people calling me, asking me them to consult their job fairs to help them get them going. A lot of these companies have taken on what I've done. So it's cool to be able to do that and to make those mistakes and learn from them and disrupt the industries. And so.
Okay, awesome. Love it. All right, we will end with Ashley Labrams, and then we'll pivot back to Carrie. But thank you so much, everybody, for your comments and your insights on those. And I hope you enjoyed, gave you something to think about. So appreciate your reading and preparation on this. Ashley.
My favorite one is always try to hire people who are smarter than you. Always take a chance on better, even if it seems like a potential threat.
It's 18 for everybody.
Is that 18?
Yeah.
Cut off on my side.
Keep going.
There we go. That was one of the best pieces of advice I received as a manager years ago. And you never, at least in my philosophy, you never want to be the smartest person in the room. You always want to surround yourself with people who can take you to the next level. And I feel like this is one of those that really stood out to me, and not just because it's bolded.
You know, a cliche or a truism that you hear a lot, and I think I've probably seen it to be somewhat generally true, is that they say A people want to hire A+ people, and then A+ people hire A++, and they're not threatened by people that are better than them. And so then that puts the company in a virtuous upward spiral that the things are getting better and better and better. And then they say B people hire C people, and then C people end up hiring D people, and D people end up hiring F people, and you put yourself in a degrading spiral. And so I think there's a lot to that principle, that if we're always hiring up, I think that's one of I'm 100% sure when I was at IntegraCore, that was one of my people principles. I'm 95, 98% sure it's still in there now, that we always hire up. But that was one of our things. We always want to hire up. And I think that's a great principle. So thank you. All right. Thanks, everybody. Carrie, back to you.
Great. Thank you. Those were good. And I struggled I sat and wrote down the numbers of each one of those that I really liked. But I mean, I could go through that whole thing, and, we could have great discussions on every single one of them. But it really pushes the thought of creativity. So before we get into creativity, before we get into curiosity, that sort of thing, I want to finish up our chapter, or our 9 steps to becoming a lifelong learner. So let me just pull that up, and we will go through the final 2. So let's see here. Shane, will you read, let's read number 8 for us.
Have projects and hobbies. It seems like a simple idea, but the truth is projects and hobbies can easily slip away from us when we're not looking. Sure, you can learn plenty watching Breaking Bad every night after work, but what if you also pick up knitting or read a Shakespeare play every other morning? It will only feel like work until you've slipped into a routine, which usually doesn't take long. What things do you enjoy doing?
So Shane, I know you have a few hobbies. Is one of those watching Breaking Bad, or is there other hobbies that you have?
I'm not going to lie. I do enjoy watching some series at night when I'm relaxing after I put the kiddos down and I'm just kind of chilling out. I have a lot of hobbies. And as a matter of fact, my hobbies I take on too much, and I always have an idea of bringing out a new one. I love to fly fish, but a hobby a lot of people don't know about me is I'm big into art and ceramics. I have a ceramics wheel in my garage, and me and my kids every weekend sit down and we throw pots in my garage.
That's cool. That's cool. And it's enjoyable, and your kids get to learn, and so those hobbies kind of carry on. Anybody else have a hobby they love doing besides work? Any other hobbies? Yeah. Bree first, and then Ivan.
So a big hobby I have is I was playing softball, but now I coach D-Elite teams. So I have co-ed ones that we take to different worlds groups, and women's one as well. So I enjoy doing that.
That's cool. And Bree also, every year she is like one of the I don't know what you call yourself out there at the country festival, but I know you've been doing that a long time. Is that like a hobby to you?
Yeah, I would say that. So I've done a little bit of everything at that festival, but I mostly do artist contracts and their grant, and I also do All of everything you hear on the radio is what I do for them. So
that's something that she's pretty passionate about, I know. So if you've been out to the country music fest or whatever out in Twilla County, Bree's behind the scenes on that. So yeah, that's cool. Ivan.
I do a men's soccer league on Sundays. I do that, and then I just started CrossFit this week, which my body is actually asking a lot of questions that I can't answer at the moment. But it's a nice hobby to help me clear my mind and let me focus on other stuff.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. Shantae.
I like to refinish furniture. I actually have a project that I'm doing this weekend. I'm refinishing a sofa table. So, and I've done other things, entertainment centers, dressers, end tables. Yeah, you name it.
So if you have anything you need refinished, you get hold of Shantae and she'll do that for you. Ashley.
Okay, my number one hobby is sing and dance. And then I do all these daily performance to my husband, and I make him sit down on the couch and look at me like my presentations. And he needs to give me a score and everything. So I'm very passionate about it. And then I make his life miserable when I connect the karaoke on weekends and I sing without stopping.
So you got your own America's Got Talent going on in your house. That's cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, these are great, and having these hobbies, having past other things that you enjoy, do you think it helps with work, or do you think it hinders work? And do you think it helps with learning, or do you think it hinders learning? What do you guys think? Shane.
110,000% helps with what you're doing. Look, we have to ask ourselves this question. I ask it every day: is do you live to work or do you work to live? And you have to make time for yourself. You have to make time for your family and to reframe and refocus. That is key to being very, very successful at work and very driven at work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to be able to have these things, and when we can blend them and we can cross over and both things, and we're excited at work and we're excited with our hobbies and pastimes as well, makes a big difference in what we do. And it's part of learning new things. It's just enjoyable to be able to take something on. You can't do everything, but you can do other things. You can do some things, and you can be good at some of those things and learn and develop. So I think that's really, really good. All right. Maddie, will you read our last one there? Improve your memory.
If you can't remember what you've been learning, learning itself can become frustrating. There are plenty of techniques available to help improve your working memory capacity so that you can recall more of what you've learned. Don't leave learning behind. Making a continuous effort to follow some of these tips will help to ensure you live a fulfilling, interesting, and exciting life. And who doesn't want that? Any memory techniques any of you use?
So do you have Joe? Yeah.
I was just going to say, I love this. I watched the PBS special on how your brain is a muscle, and just the process of exercising that with little things is like you can improve memory. It's just that old adage is true that what you focus on, you get. And if you really want to improve retention or you want to improve names, you're able to do those things, and what you set your mind to, you're able to. Now there's limits, but just the simple fact of exercising it means that you'll get better at it.
Yeah, I like that. It's important, like anything, of course. And I use this all the time. Sorry, but and when you get my age, you will start to have some memory loss or some gaps there. And so exercising it and working with it will help to improve those things. Just same with regular muscles. Ivan's out there doing CrossFit. If I were to do CrossFit right now, I'm sure I would be having my funeral the next day. because it's it's a tough thing, but you have to work those muscles, and the brain is no different. So it's really important to exercise that. Techie.
Yeah, part of that principle of exercise is to have the confidence that you have a good memory. The one thing that fails a lot of people is they tell themselves, "Oh, I have a bad memory. I can't remember anything," and those thought process will be self-fulfilling. You will have a bad memory, and so you have to tell yourself you have a great memory. And then two, create systems around your life to review information that you've learned before, and then also associate. It's another principle of memory is whatever information, context, people you learn, you associate with another person, and you got to exaggerate that in order to stay within your memory. So when we teach using stories, that's how we learn things, or we teach using a song, we can remember lyrics better or principles better that way. The more senses you use, the more you can remember things, and combine them all. So
Yeah, no, that's really good. I think that's important process. Shantae.
I was just going to say kind of what Joe said about your memory, just kind of keeping your mind sharp. My grandma has a really good memory, and she's in her 80s. And I asked her one time how she recalled everything and was just so sharp. And she said that when she would sit at stoplights, she would just count the cars going through the intersection. Or if she was talking to someone and they had polka dots on their shirt, she would just count the polka dots as she was talking to them, just to keep her mind sharp. And so I think anything that we do to just keep our mind sharp helps our memory.
Just keep practicing. Yeah. And Shana just mentioned that he and his kids do memory games, and there's lots of things, you guys. If there's all kinds of exercises and games, fun things. It's really important. I've been very, very good with names and faces my whole life, especially in the sales. I've been in sales for about 47 years. Okay. I know a lot of people and trying to remember, I've met a lot of people and trying to remember those names. I'm better at faces. I can, if I don't remember your name, I will remember kind of where the circumstance, and then the name starts to come. But it's just practice and development and those sorts of things that make a huge difference. Ashley.
So I agree, and I use what Techie said and what Shane and Joe too. So the first thing, and I think this is because since I was a kid, when I had to study in school, my mom had three. So she had three kids to show. And for her, the best way was to create songs with all the information. So you would see me in fourth grade, third grade as a kid in my test, and I remembered, of course, because I was like singing all the songs in my head. And believe me, it always worked. I still do that. And another thing I do that has a lot to do with what Shantae said, with what Shantae's grandma used to do, still does, is that every time I come home or every time I go to the office, I like daily to use like different routes. Because once I heard that, I read it. And since that day, I have been doing this now like for 10, 12 years. And I think it works too. It helps you a lot to prevent memory loss.
And I think we have to be careful. I think, when we think about these things that you guys are giving us, we have to be careful with technology. So technology can be good for memory, but it can also be bad for, your memory. Like I grew up with no GPS, and I can go from one end of the state to the other, and I can find just about any location without any map. Okay. Utah is not hard to learn, but I literally have driven this state just all the time. And so I didn't have GPS. I had a map. And when I would travel to other locations across the country for work, one of the things I'd do at nighttime was this is back in the day, we'd get the phone book out, and in the phone book would be a map of the city. Okay. So I would take the phone book with me, and I would take my rental car and I would drive around. And I remember salespeople saying, how do you know this place so well? You just barely came here. And I said, because I go out and drive around and check things out. So, because I'd be saying, hey, here's a great place. We ought to go make sales calls in. And they'd like, how do you know where this was? So just trying things and using those brains. So technology can be fantastic, but things like GPS, you don't learn anything when GPS tells you everything. So sometimes turn GPS off and go get a map or just go discover, because that's part of the process. Maria.
So I'm going to piggyback on what you said. Like I've stated before, I'm a very visual learner. So this whole east, south, west, it's a blur to me. It's like talking in a different language. And so I memorize landscape. So if like they tell me, oh, go down the street and turn left at the McDonald's, and then, I memorize that. So my aunt would always tell me, well, what are you going to do the day like they tear down the McDonald's? Like, how are you going to know where you're navigating to? So when I went back to California 2 years ago and things had changed, I felt lost because I was like, oh my God, where is the market? Like what's going on? So yeah.
Well, we'll get together sometime, Maria, and I will help you with Utah navigation, because it is so easy.
Sounds good.
All right. So you guys, as we kind of wrap up this package with being a lifelong learner, do you have any comments or questions? What have you taken out of these 9 steps? We've been doing this now for a few weeks. What have you taken out of this for yourself, as developing to be a lifelong learner? Shane?
We're always learning. And if you're not, you're going to fall behind.
Or you're dead. You're usually, if you're not learning, you're dead. So that's, hopefully you're not that. That's good. Thank you.
Harry, today
Yeah.
you are very final destination. I don't know what's happening with you.
Well, as you get older, none of us are getting younger, by the way. No, that's good. Thank you. Appreciate that. I better be careful, huh? Any other thoughts or comments about learning? I hope that we've taken this time in the last couple of weeks to encourage you to really be that lifelong learner, that it's not just about, oh gosh, the company wants me to read another book, okay, or go to another training. I've done all of these things. I have had people come to my trainings over the years. I remember a number of years ago, I had a guy from St. George. I had a program. It was a 3-day program, and about 100 people came, and there was a guy off to my right hand side in the first or second row, and this is what he was doing. And he was like, I have been to one of these trainings before, and I know all of this stuff, and my boss made me come, and why am I here? And so when I see people like that, and I hope that's none of you, my goal is always to get you to uncross those arms and embrace, so again, it's not so much about how much you know, it's what you do with what you know that's important. And I talked with him about that afterwards, and I said, I know that you've been to these trainings before, but what are you doing with it? You may know everything that I'm going to teach today, but what are you doing with it? That is the key. Techie?
Yeah, you kind of just remind me of something I've been thinking about lately. We think about the antithesis of learning is ignorance or so, but I think related to that, it's pride and ego as well. And we have to have the humility and let go of our ego and our pride to learn something new, to tell ourselves we don't know all the information, and maybe we need to improve a skill set, or maybe we need to learn about something new and be more creative. And in order to do that, we have to let go of the ego and pride and to be open to new ideas and to get better.
Yeah. So again, it's not that you've been through this information. Maybe you do know all of this. So again, my question is, what are you doing with it? I don't care how much you know. I care how much you know and you're using it. That's my thing. So, any other last comments about being a lifelong learner? Keep these steps. We've sent them. I will post them into the, if I haven't already done so, I can't remember, into the group deal under the management training. But I hope that you've thought about it. I hope that it's something that you are like, okay, I'm gonna really start to develop myself, whether it's something to do with work or whether it's something to do with a hobby, whatever that may be, but really focus on becoming that lifelong learner. Any other last comments? Okay. Yes, Ashley Hosang.
Okay, so something that helped me a lot, and it's something that I was doing yesterday with my best friend. With all these things that I have been learning, I went again every week. I'm going through the assessment, the Gallup assessment, because we all have 5 strengths, right? And depending on what all the information I receive, I just like to take a very close look on things that I am good, but on things that I need to work more to then use all these techniques to try to give like all the strength I need that I'm missing on certain things. So that was pretty awesome. Just having that a bit, having the chance to be able to mix both.
That's fantastic. And I hope that you guys are looking. Yesterday, I met with Techie and we went over his 5 strengths that he took on the test and talked about and went in a little bit deeper. And then, of course, in the reports, it gives you action items to look at to be able to use those things. So, those are really important. And we want to be able to do that with each of you. I started with Techie, but we want to be able to reach out to each of you. And it is a great learning thing to have those, that report in front of you. Techie told me something yesterday I thought was interesting. He said, I took the test, I don't know how many years ago, number of years ago or whatever, but he took it again with us as well. And he said it came out exactly the same. So that's a great testament to that. Yeah, Techie.
Yeah, it's just I was kind of disappointed. I paid for it again, and I was like, wait, this is the same test from 5 years ago, and I don't know what the algorithm is or what it does, but it is within your DNA. It is something that tells you that you can use as a tool to improve and work on your strengths. So
yeah, so great learning things. All right, thanks you guys. So now we're going to transition to the next section, and it's going to take us a week or two or whatever to to go through this piece. I'm very excited about this. I love. I've been working on this program for many years, and have taught it to hundreds of people across the country, and it's a great opportunity for us to learn about this particular subject. So I asked Joe, and I don't know, Joe, if you saw my email. Did you see my email with the link?
I did see the email with the link.
Can you
watched the link, but I don't recall you asking me something about the link.
in my email somewhere in there it says, can you please have that link ready to play? You're just a little more experienced with the video thing, and I just thought you could help.
I can have that ready for you. I yes, I'll have that ready in just a second.
Okay,
it's loading right now.
So as he's loading that, just again, I wanted to share this. It's just a short video. I want you to pay attention. It's not real meaty so much, but I want to start the piece off with this particular subject. As we talked in the beginning with our our culture piece, it was on curiosity. And so if we could play this and just kind of listen for a couple of minutes here.
What we're looking for is how everything works. What makes everything work. It has to do with curiosity. It has to do with people wondering what makes something do something. There's a way of looking anew, as if you never saw it before, for the first time, and asking questions about it as if you were different. And then to discover that if you try to get answers, that they're related to each other. Things that make the wind make the waves. And the motion of water is like the motion of air, is like the motion of sand. Things have common features. It turns out more and more universal. It's almost unbelievable. The truth is so remarkable, so amazing. It's incredible. Take the world from another point of view. It's curiosity. It's the word we are, what we are.
Just like a runner gets a kick out of sweating, I get a kick out of thinking. I can't stop.
It's curiosity.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay. How many of you get a kick out of thinking? I hope so. We're going to talk about that, and I think it's really important. So I sent out a video a couple of days ago, whatever it was. I think it was a couple of days ago, maybe Wednesday. But how many? Well, I won't ask how many watched it. I hope you all watched it. It was part of our assignment. But let's talk about. We just saw this thing on curiosity, and what an amazing thing. As we kind of delve into this, let me ask a question, and we're going to talk a little bit about the video that I sent out to you. How many of you consider yourself highly creative? Okay, only a few, which is the response that I get in most cases when I've asked this question, because again, I've taught this for a long time. Being highly creative, and only if a handful of people will say, "Oh yes, I consider myself highly creative." We're going to talk about that in just a second. Jessica, did you have a comment? Jessica Jed?
No,
Sorry.
I was just identifying as highly
Oh yeah.
creative.
Okay, so yeah, very good. And I would say that, yes. So why aren't we all highly creative? Think about that. Now, you watch the video from I forget his name now. I need to pull it up, but the video had some amazing things, and I've talked about a Harvard this study that they did years ago. They talked about taking these young people, and from the ages, from very early ages to about 5 years old, nearly all of these kids would be classified as highly creative. Okay, until about the age of 5, and then they studied them, and this is part of this deal that you watched on the video. So what happened? What happened to the numbers, the percentages? By the time they were about 18 years old, what were the percentages? Remember? I mean, and you can ballpark it. It doesn't have to be exact.
Well,
Was it 12?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. So at 15 years, it's 12%. By the time you really get up to 18 or a little bit older, the Harvard study actually was about 4%, I believe. So what happened between the ages of 5 and 30 or 18 or whatever, Jessica?
There's the old adage of get your head out of the clouds. I think it's kind of conditioned into us to become more focused on traditional learning and doing what's responsible versus kind of letting that part of our mind evolve further. So I think it's conditioning a lot.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Kyle?
I think experience leads us to be more logical, and so we use our own experience as a reference for things. Whereas when you're younger, you don't have a lot of that, and so you're not blocked. You're not boxed in by your experience. I think so. I think we box ourselves in a little bit on our own experience.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Shantae?
He mentions in the video a couple things. He says one is doubt and the other is fear. And I think as adults, so I have an example actually. I was on a kayaking trip last weekend and just driving mindlessly, and bug hits the window. It's kind of a gross example, but the bug hits the window and kind of splatters and whatnot. And I had this weird thought, like, about insects and how, like, do they have a heart? How small is their heart? Like, what do their internal organs look like when they're only this big? Like stuff like that. But in the middle of my curious thought, I kind of caught myself and thought to myself, weird, why am I even thinking about that? Like, shake it off, like, move on. Like, why would you even think about that? But it's because, we do doubt ourselves, and we do stop ourselves in the moments when we are being curious sometimes, or being creative, and we start to think like it's weird, or why are we doing that, or get on with your day. Like, it doesn't really matter. This isn't important. Curiosity is not important.
Yeah. Isn't that sad? Isn't that sad? It, too bad that you didn't continue that conversation with yourself and discover a little bit more. You should have saw most of the organs on your windshield, but but it's sad when we catch ourselves. Techie?
I think it also mentions that I guess in our school system, there's two type of creative thinking: divergent thinking and convergent thinking. And what Shantae was referring to was convergent thinking, which is, we need to analyze things, but also we criticize, it's fear-based and whatnot. But divergent thinking is we need to just run wild, be free, be imaginative. And the issue is the last 20, 30 years is we've been taught both to do at the same time, and there's really no effective system we have to separate the two, to give us time to be wild, be free, think about amazing ideas, and then also gives time to analyze later, criticize, and whatnot. So
Yeah. It's very interesting. So one of the things that happens between the age of 5 and 18 is public school or traditional teaching. Things like we have rules, which you got to have some rules, but sometimes we have rules on thinking, like you can't color outside of the lines. There's these lines that they put in, you got to color inside the lines. Well, if we can't ever color outside the lines, how do we discover things? Okay. So all of these things started happening as we started going through school. People started telling us, and then parents do the same thing, oh, you can't do this and you can't do that and blah, 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 blah. And we grow up building this foundation of maybe some fear and limitations, because we are our own limitation. The sky is not the limit. You've heard that before. The sky's the limit. No, the sky is not the limit. You are the limit. You limit yourself. The sky has nothing to do with it. So one of the great things that he said at the end, though, give me an idea. I'll go to Ashley first, and then we'll talk about that. Ashley?
I just had a story kind of in that vein. So my son is 5 and he just started kindergarten this year. And one of the assignments they had in class was he had to color things the appropriate color, right? So like the trees had to be green and brown, and he colored his tree purple and orange. And the teacher was like, it's a green and brown tree. And my kid was like, well, in my world, they're purple and orange. And then he had to hear from her like, hey, no, they're green and brown. Look at the tree outside. And I remember him coming home just upset that his trees couldn't be purple and orange. And I wish I'd seen this video beforehand, because I was like, no, trees are green and brown, so then I reinforced that for him, that like you can't imagine outside the box. But yeah, even right in kindergarten, they start teaching things have to be a certain way.
Yeah, and so it's just frustrating to me that we can't allow that. So at the end of the video, he gave us some impactful insight into the future. Do you remember what he said? He said, we all have that creativity inside of us. And if we don't change things, we can't sustain the way we're going right now. We have got to, because he gave a rundown from like a million years ago or a couple of million years ago and all the way. So we have the ability to shift this. So my thought to you, or my comment to you, is you may not think yourself highly creative because, as Joe mentioned earlier, you're not using the muscle. There's a creative muscle, and you need to learn how to use that. You used to use it. Every one of us used to use that muscle in an amazing way, and we stopped. So being highly creative, again, some people associate that with art or some sort of craft or whatever. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about thinking creatively, and being highly creative can be in lots of different ways, but you have got to practice that and get that muscle back. It's inside of you. It's built into you, to your DNA, to think creatively. So all of us have the opportunity to be able to use that. We just need to pull it out and start using it. Yeah, look at Maria. Look how creative she is with the color of her screen right now.
I hadn't even noticed that, so you guys pointed it out. I don't even know how that happened.
Well, thanks for being creative. No,
You're welcome.
I think it's important to make sure we don't limit, what we're doing and go down that road. So as we think about this, and this is what we're going to get into, we're not going to have a ton of time left today, but we'll get into more of it next week. I want you to start thinking about this. We're going to talk about creative thinking, but before we actually can start using those places, I want to talk to you a little bit about a thinking place, okay? And whoops, sorry. Let me just pull up I got to pull over my sheet here to share a couple of little things with you. And let me get to this little slide thing. This is not a PowerPoint presentation like you might think. But one of the things that we want to be able to understand is good thinkers are always in demand. A person who knows how may always have a job. The person who knows why will always be his boss. Okay. So some time ago, I heard this story and I thought it was great. That's a story about Charles Kettering. Charles Kettering was a great inventor. He was the founder of Delco, like Delco batteries. He had over 140 patents, 30 honorary doctorate degrees. And he likened creating a place for thinking to hanging a birdcage in one's mind. So I put this, birdcage up here for you to see, to think about this as we talk about it. He bet somebody that he could, bet $100 that he could make someone buy a bird in the next year. And people are like, no, you can't make somebody buy a bird. So he had a friend, and he talked with him about this and said, I bet I can make you buy a bird in the next year. And the friend figured, you couldn't make me do anything. So Charles gave the man an expensive Swiss bird cage. It was beautiful. Okay. Much more elaborate than the one I'm showing here. And it hung in this guy's home for a long time. And every time he had guests, they would always ask, oh, when did your bird die? And he said, I never had a bird. And he'd have to explain this whole thing every single time. After doing this repeatedly, he went out and bought a parakeet. He paid Charles $100 for the bet. And so the concept behind this is if you hang bird cages in your mind, you will eventually get something to put in them. So that's part of the having a place to think. Okay. And so I wanted to bring this up. We'll cover this shortly here, and then we'll get into creative thinking as we go. But where are the places that you go to think? So I have a few I'll share, and you can maybe tell me a little bit about some of yours as we talk about this. So here's a couple of places I go to think. Okay, I have a few. One of them is in right around my fire pit. You can see my wife's garden back here, one of her 2 gardens that she grows. But it's a great place. It's quiet. It's secluded. I love being able to go back here. I can turn the fire on. Another place, which I've talked with some of you about, some of you have hot tubs as well. I spend time almost every single day in the evening, about 9:30, I go out and sit in the hot tub. I can see a lot of stars. I get a chance to think. Now, I don't have pen and paper there because it gets wet, but I still have that opportunity to go out and think. I have a place in my house. This is a favorite place of mine to sit down and think. Just think. I also believe just going out into nature and driving up into the beautiful scenery that we have here in Utah, completely, undistracted, to be able to get out and think. I've used my car for thinking for many years. I don't listen to the radio, and I just drive and I think. So these are some places that I go to. Where is it that you go to think? Where are your thinking places? Jessica Judd.
So I think the external can really help with thinking, but I like to think of it as it starts on the inside, because it's the inside we're dealing with. So I find meditation, going to a place in my mind and learning to calm that, is a really good way of being able to think better. Anxiety often affects our memory and our ability to be creative. So for me, it's retreating to meditation and trying to learn to calm my mind, and that puts me where I need to be to think more.
Yeah, perfect. I love that. I love it. Ashley Labrum.
I think best in the shower, and I don't know if it's because there's no distractions at all possible. Like I'll sit down to think and then think of something and have to go look it up, and then suddenly I'm in a rabbit hole of the internet. But in the shower, that's not really an option. So I think that's why it's my best place to think.
Yeah, there's a little, there used to be a commercial. I don't know if any of you ever remember this, but this commercial was a group of business women, men and women. They were standing in the shower, all dressed. One man was a minute late, and he jumps in the shower and closes the curtain. He says, "Why are we meeting in the shower?" Well, the boss says to all of them, "I've always heard that the shower is a great place to think and come up with ideas." Then the scene kind of fades off, and when the next scene comes on, they're all laughing in the shower. They step out of the shower and start to leave, having a good time. When they turn the corner, the janitor is standing there cleaning in the bathroom. He looks at them with puzzled look, and they all get serious and straighten their tie and everything, and the scene ends. So thinking in the showers, that's been around a long time. It's a good place. I agree. Shane.
Being active. For me, it's being active. I stand, right? When I have a standing desk, and when I want to really focus on something, I'll sit. But for the most time, I'm always standing because it keeps my brain just very active. Same thing with going for a walk. If I'm stressed and there's something going on that's I need to chill out before I freak out, I'll get up and I will just go for a walk around the block. Doesn't matter what time of day it is. Just get out and just get out of my element and use my brain and just relax and think and go from there.
Yeah, very good. I skipped Mariah. Sorry, Mariah. I was thinking I had to jump to Shane. Mariah.
I'm like Shane. I actually do a lot of thinking at the gym. I think when I'm like occupying my physical body, it allows my mind to kind of like roam free and do a lot of thinking. So I find myself thinking a lot at the gym, and a lot of the times I have headphones in, but there's no music playing. So it's really just me working out to no music, and my own thoughts is kind of what's occupying my head.
So you use the headphones to kind of block out the noise?
Mhm. Most of the time,
Yeah.
I usually like start with music playing, and then at some point during the workout, I kind of just get into a groove, and I'll just turn it off. Like I'll just hit pause, and then everything just kind of flows better like that. And so I think when I'm occupying my physical body, it helps me kind of kickstart my mind a little bit more.
Yeah, great. Very good. Thank you, Ashley Hosang.
I'm like Ashley. In the bathtub, in the bathroom, that's my favorite place. And of course, when I'm driving, all of my friends, they're used to being in the car and listening to music. But sometimes when I have a lot to think on, that's something I have from my dad, that I'm just in silence. And it's me with all these thoughts, brainstorming. And the third place is before I go to sleep, because I have a lot of energy and then my husband sleeps and I don't have with who to talk. So it's only me with my thoughts, thinking like for 2-3 hours.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Sometimes you should just kind of nudge him and wake him up and say, hey, I've got a great idea. I need to pass by you. Good. Ivan?
I didn't complete everything.
For me, so excuse me, walking during my walks and before and after prayer.
Okay.
That's
Yep.
my mind just keeps going on that. Yep.
Yeah. Perfect. I love that. Yes, Maria.
So mine is going to sound really weird, but the best time for me to think about anything is late at night after my kids are put down and like I'm relaxing for the night, and I'm either like listening to my true crime podcast or like watching a true crime or horror movie. Like that relaxes me, as crazy as that sounds, and my mind, and like it just goes and I'm thinking and I'm like, oh, I can do this. And yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, again, this is our thinking places. So Techie?
I really liked everybody's answer. It's hard to say. I like to think everywhere. It really depends on the context, whether in the morning, before and after prayer, or during prayer, you kind of thinking, trying to understand different thoughts that come to your mind, that inspiration. But one place I like to do the most is just in my car when I'm driving. Just turn off the radio or the audible, and then let yourself just, I guess, receive information in a way and wonder where it takes you. So
Yeah, very good. So we'll take these last two, Kyle, and then Shantae.
I like to do the hot tub thing, but I will try to not think for about 10 minutes before thinking. And one of the ways to do that is to try to focus on one single thing, like how the water feels or something. I also do really well with long drives in low traffic areas. Traffic is a distraction, and so I try to get away and not disturbed by anything. It really helps. Walks are great too.
Yeah, I used to have a drive from Brigham City to Logan. That was where my office was, up in Logan, and driving through the canyon up there every day was my, just my favorite thing to do, and it gave me lots of opportunity to think. So, Shantae?
Obviously drives, I guess, for my last story, but I have on my patio, I call it the chill spot, but I have an egg chair that swings. And so I think it's something about like the swinging motion and just like listening to the birds and hearing the sounds, like that's a good thinking spot for me. And also probably I have like a meditation corner in my bedroom. I have a chair where I do my morning meditations and journaling and stuff like that.
Yeah. So these are all fantastic. Go to your thinking places often. Do it often. Again, I've driven for many years because I've just driven longer distances, and in sales I travel, so I've had lots of time. I honestly don't know who the new artists are. My wife is more into the music, and we'll drive, and she'll if she asks me who this is, I can almost guarantee it's Ed Sheeran. Okay. But I don't know all the artists, but she's told me this is Ed Sheeran. And then she'll ask me again and she goes, this is Ed Sheeran. So she must like Ed Sheeran a lot, which she does. But I don't know the artist because I don't listen to the music. So, I'm still back in the 70s, that's just where I grew up. So music today doesn't have a deal to me because I'm thinking all the time. I'm using that time and I love it. I love being able to do that.
Somebody want to tell
a
Carrie how to say
Yeah.
his name?
What?
I thought that was part of your point. You were making a joke, and maybe you were on purpose. But it's Ed Sheeran.
Sheeran, okay. Sheeran, yeah, because
So
I
now
don't.
you can act like you're more in the you're in the cool, you're in the know.
I can say it right to her when I see her when she asks me that
If she
question.
still calls him Sheeran, yeah, you could be like, honey, don't you know it's Sheeran?
See, that's just how much I just don't listen to the music. I don't. He does have good music when we're together and I listen to it, but I don't even know his name. I do know his face. I know what he looks like, but beyond that, I really don't. So it's just one of those things. When I found a place to think my thoughts found a place in me. So this is why we should go often. When I found a place to think my thoughts found a place in me. So we need to be able to have those places. Am I willing to pay the price to cultivate the habit of giving birth to, nurturing, and developing great thoughts every day? Are you taking time every single day to develop and nurture those thoughts? We need you to. Okay, we need you to do that as part of being a leader in this company. We don't want to be restrictive or limiting. We want your ideas. We want your thoughts. If you don't go places and think them, and you don't have them, and you allow the busyness of the day to take over, and you never have a creative thought, then we're failing you to allow that to happen. We need your ideas. As a company, we need those. We need you to think creatively. We need you to think more often. This book that I get a lot of information out of, called Thinking for a Change. It's thinking for a change. It's got a couple of meanings. So it's like time to think for a change, and it's also thinking to make changes, thinking for a change. So let's develop these. I just really wanted to share that first before we get into the creative thinking side of it, which we'll talk more about obviously next week. But I want you to think about this for next week. Go out and find those places. Go to your car, go to your meditation, go to your spas, wherever it is, and start and just think this week. Okay, take some time to cultivate and nurture that. And think about ideas. Think about, ways to change things. Again, we as a company should not limit you. We should allow risk taking, which we do. But, we don't want you to stop and just be a robot. We don't need robots in the company. We need creative thinkers. I want you to be highly creative. It's in you right now. I promise you it's in you right now. You just need to pull it out. So develop becoming a highly creative person. Be that 5-year-old again. Color outside the lines. Do the fun things that you can do. Shane.
Art is exceptional when it comes to creation and being creative. Sit down, draw a picture, color. My wife loves to color. And like I said, for us, we like to do ceramics and art and paint and all those things. That really piques my creativity, and that really will bring it out of you.
Yeah, Maria?
My little girl, she loves art. She has so much paint, she could probably have her own Michaels with the amount of paint and paintbrushes she has. And she draws everything. She drew Mariah a picture one day. So she draws, and sometimes I look at her stuff and I'm like, what is this? And she'll be like, I'm Picasso, this is art. And I'm like, okay, if you say so.
That's right.
But she loves art.
Yes, and there's so much, you guys, there's so much. So take her example, her little girl, and Ashley Labram's little boy who said, hey, my trees are purple and orange. Let's just be creative. Let's think outside the box. So next week we're gonna have that opportunity a little bit more. We're gonna talk about creative thinking and the curiosity, and go from there. So we're gonna close up. You have a great weekend in front of you. Gives you a chance to unwind and go to your thinking places and enjoy, and spend some time doing some hobbies and some fun things. So thanks for everybody. Thanks for your comments. Thanks for your feedback and your good information. We'll get more stuff out to you for next week, and you guys have a great weekend. Take care.
Thanks. See you, everybody.